They'll look at you like they've known you forever. Finish your sentences. Laugh at your jokes. Echo your dreams. It feels like recognition, but it's not. It's a scan. They're not seeing your soul, they're scanning it for weaknesses. And by the time you feel truly seen, they've already memorized how to control you. Ask yourself, is this real connection? Or psychological targeting dressed as fate? You tell yourself it's rare, that maybe finally you've met someone who just gets it. Someone who doesn't play games. Someone who listens, understands, reflects you back with gentleness and clarity. And maybe they do. But something still doesn't sit right. You find yourself opening up too fast, trusting too much. You don't feel pushed, but you do feel guided. And that is the first sign. The kind of charm that doesn't feel like charm. It feels like oxygen, like safety, like finally being understood after years of isolation. But it's not real. It's a customized illusion, and it's built fast because they know what they're doing. They don't connect. They mirror. They match your humor, your rhythm, your hopes. They remember details no one else ever did. They validate your wounds in just the right tone. You think, this is rare, but in truth, it's rehearsed. They're not bonding. They're collecting data to become the exact person you'll lower your defenses for. Superficial charm and love bombing isn't always flowers and texts. Sometimes it's quiet, calculated. They study your speech patterns. They adopt your values. They reflect your childhood wounds like mirrors, making you feel safe, seen, even chosen. And that's what makes it dangerous. Because the moment you respond with warmth, they escalate. Plans, promises, fantasies. Within weeks, they talk about a future, moving in, starting something bigger than both of us. It feels surreal, but deep down, something is off. Too much, too fast. Still, you rationalize it. You call it soulmate energy. But you don't realize you're being pulled into a script one they've run before many times. And like all scripts, it has a turning point. It happens the moment you disagree. Say no. Set a boundary. Even something small like not replying right away. Suddenly, the warmth freezes. The compliments vanish. Their tone changes cold, sarcastic, withdrawn. You feel like you broke something precious. You question what you did. You try harder. You seek their approval again. That confusion, that guilt, is by design. This emotional whiplash is not a red flag. It's the moment the mask slips. And what's behind the mask is not love. It's transaction. You were valuable because you were pliable. You gave. You believed. You opened. But the moment you ask for emotional reciprocity, the contract broke. Stoic philosophy offers clarity here. Epictetus wrote, "First say to yourself what you would be, and then do what you have to do." A manipulator wants to define you before you define yourself. They want your identity malleable so theirs can take shape around it. But a Stoic does the opposite. You observe before you absorb. You question before you yield. Ask yourself, is this affection or performance? Is this intimacy or invasion? Because real connection doesn't rush. It unfolds with friction, with patience, with time. And if someone is mirroring your every move, adapting to your every thought, saying everything you long to hear, that's not love. That's infiltration. You thought they saw your soul, but what they really saw was your opening. It doesn't happen all at once. At first, it's subtle. You mishear something, or so you think. You remember a conversation one way, they insist it went another. You laugh it off, let it slide, until it happens again and again. One day, you're staring at your phone, scrolling through texts, heart pounding. You know what they said. You remember every word. But now, they swear it never happened. Not only that, they suggest you misinterpreted it, overreacted. That maybe you're just sensitive. And the worst part? You start believing them. This is the second sign. Pathological lying and gaslighting, a psychological attack dressed up as misunderstanding. They lie, but not like most people. This isn't about avoiding conflict or saving face. They lie when they don't have to, when the truth would be easier. Why? Because truth gives you agency, but lies give them control. To a manipulative mind, words aren't just communication. They're weapons. Each sentence designed to bend your reality just a little more. They'll tell you stories that feel real, emotionally compelling, full of detail, tragic childhoods, betrayals, unfairness. But over time, the details shift. What was once a strict father becomes a neglectful mother. A job they were fired from becomes a role they chose to leave. You start noticing cracks. But every time you question them, they flip the script. They accuse you of being paranoid, too emotional, too focused on the past. And that's when gaslighting truly begins. They say something cruel, then insist it never happened. They break a promise, then deny they ever made it. They twist your words until you feel like the liar. And slowly, your memory starts to erode. Not because it's weak, but because it's under siege. That's the design. Not to erase facts, but to erase your trust in yourself. You stop speaking up. You filter your feelings. You doubt your instincts. You start asking others, was I too harsh? Did I imagine that? You begin to outsource your reality, and they become the source. Here's what Stoicism teaches you in moments like this. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "If someone can prove me wrong and show me my mistake, I will gladly change. But if not, I must stay true to my judgment." But what if the entire goal is to make you unsure whether you've even made a judgment at all? That's what pathological liars steal. Not just truth, but clarity. To fight back, you don't need to scream or prove anything. You need to document. Anchor yourself in reality, not for them, but for you. Write down what was said. Date it. Track the moments that don't add up. Not to win, but to remember. Because clarity is a form of defense. Talk to people outside their influence. Let others remind you what normal looks like, what truth feels like. Let someone look you in the eye and say, "No, that's not okay. You're not imagining it." And when they triangulate, turning you against friends, planting false narratives, creating drama, only they can recognize it for what it is. Control through confusion. A Stoic doesn't need every answer, but they refuse to be intellectually sedated. Gaslighting only works when you're isolated. So reconnect, reground, reclaim your grip on what's real. If someone's version of truth changes every time you assert yourself, that's not a glitch. That's the system. If someone keeps shifting the ground beneath your feet, it's because they don't want you standing at all. You share something that matters. A wound, a memory, a moment when you needed someone to just be there. And they are, physically. But emotionally, it's like throwing your pain into a canyon and hearing nothing echo back. They nod, maybe even say the right words, but it lands flat. Too calm, too scripted, like they're reciting a scene, not living it with you. This is the third sign, lack of empathy and emotional emptiness. It's not always obvious. In fact, at first, it can feel like they're just stoic or rational, but over time, something starts to feel off. When you cry, they offer logic. When you fear, they offer critique. When you ache, they offer Silence. Because your pain doesn't register as human experience to them. It registers as data. They see emotion the way someone might watch a movie with the sound off. They understand the expressions. They even mimic them well. But the feeling, the internal resonance, isn't there. You begin to notice it in small moments. You talk about a friend's death. They change the subject. You're overwhelmed by anxiety. They say you're overthinking. You open up about childhood trauma. They smirk or worse, yawn, and you try to explain. Try again. You think maybe you weren't clear enough. That if you just phrased it differently, they'd finally understand. But they won't. Not because they don't want to, but because they can't. Their emotional world is hollow. They don't process connection, they process opportunity. Vulnerability doesn't invite intimacy, it triggers calculation. Because now, they have leverage. That thing you told them during a late-night confession, it becomes ammunition, stored quietly, weaponized later when they need to silence you, shame you, or win. It's a betrayal you won't see coming. Because you believed your openness would build closeness. But to them, it's just strategy. Stoic philosophy offers a powerful mirror here. Seneca once wrote, "We suffer more often in imagination than in reality, but when you're with someone who lacks empathy, imagination becomes survival. You imagine they care. You imagine the blank stare means processing. You interpret crumbs as love. That's not Stoic. That's self-abandonment. A true Stoic grounds themselves in what is, not what they wish it were. If someone consistently meets your suffering with disinterest, condescension, or coldness, believe them. Don't wait for emotional magic to appear in a place it never existed. Here's a quiet Stoic test. Pay attention to what happens when you're in pain. Do they come closer or pull away? Do they hold space or shift blame? Do they try to comfort or correct? And most importantly, do you feel emotionally seen or emotionally exposed? Because when you're dealing with someone emotionally hollow, your greatest wounds become their deepest access point. They may mimic compassion for a while, but eventually it wears thin. And what remains is the echo of your own voice in an empty room. Don't chase empathy where it doesn't live. Don't teach compassion to someone who uses your pain as a blueprint for control. You are not too much. You're just speaking into silence that was never meant to answer. It starts small. A favor, a short stay, a borrowed item. You tell yourself, they just need a little help. They're going through something. This is what love looks like showing up. And maybe it is. Until it never ends. This is the fourth sign. Parasitic exploitation, the slow drain of your time, money, energy, and peace by someone who never plans to give back. They don't take everything at once. They nibble. A shared Netflix account becomes your bill. A few nights at your place turns into a relocation. A temporary loan gets forgotten in a sea of new requests. They frame it as closeness, as teamwork, as building something together. But the blueprint only benefits one person, and it's not you. They're not leaning on you during hard times. They're building their life on top of yours. You'll hear phrases like, "We're in this together." It's not about money, it's about support. If you really loved me, you'd understand. But when you need help, they're unavailable. Busy, cold. Suddenly, your needs are too much. That's the imbalance. You give from love. They take from entitlement. And that's the part that hurts most. They don't just use you. They make you feel guilty for noticing. You start justifying their patterns, telling yourself they'll pay you back. That one day they'll see how much you gave. But deep down, You know. They've seen it. They just don't care. Because to them, love is not a partnership. It's a pipeline. Your resources, fuel. Your generosity, expected. Your boundaries, inconvenient. And when you finally say no, when you pause the giving, they don't thank you for all you've done. They turn cold, withdraw affection, maybe even accuse you of being selfish. This is the emotional debt trap. You gave too much, and now you feel too invested to walk away. Stoic philosophy offers a sharp blade here. Epictetus said, "Wealth consists not in having great possessions, but in having few wants." But some people have endless wants, and they mask them as love. They don't want you. They want access to your energy, your attention, your network, your home. And once they've extracted enough, they leave. Or worse, they linger, just close enough to keep the door open. They may still log into your accounts, still call when they need something, still guilt you with phrases like, "After everything we've been through." They're not keeping in touch. They're keeping their supply chain intact. Here's the truth. When someone values you for what you provide, not who you are not in a relationship. You are being harvested. A Stoic knows the difference between generosity and depletion. If your giving leaves you drained, confused, or resentful, it's not generosity anymore. It's survival under manipulation. Your time, your space, your peace, these are your inner fortresses. Don't surrender them to someone who sees your love as a resource, not a gift. You don't need to explain. You don't need to fight. You just need to close the gate. Because some people don't leave you when they're done taking. They leave when you finally stop giving. They never stay still. They jump from job to job, from one drama to the next, from one grand plan to another, all unfinished. At first, you admire the spontaneity. It feels bold, alive, unapologetic, but soon it's chaos, and you're stuck cleaning up behind them. This is the fifth sign: impulsivity and lack of accountability, a dangerous pattern where destruction follows them, but responsibility never does. They live for stimulation. Boredom is unbearable. Routine feels like prison, so they chase the next thrill. A new project, a spontaneous trip, a wild romance. And when it collapses, as it always does, they blame everything but themselves. Their boss didn't recognize their genius. Their ex was too jealous. Their landlord was unfair. Life is always unjust, never them. You start noticing a pattern. They always have a story, but never a lesson. And that's when the burden shifts. You begin to carry their weight. You cover for their mistakes. You fix what they break. You apologize for things you never did, just to keep the peace. This emotional labor wears you down, not because you're weak, but because you're anchored, and they're not. They move recklessly and expect you to absorb the impact. And when you finally point it out, they explode, or vanish, or worse, they become someone else entirely. Sweet, soft, remorseful, just long enough to pull you back in. But the cycle doesn't change, because the core problem isn't immaturity. It's avoidance. Avoidance of reflection. Avoidance of repair. Avoidance of growth. They fear accountability like a shadow fears the sun, because taking responsibility would mean seeing who they've become, and they're not ready for that. Stoic philosophy has no patience for this kind of denial. Chrysippus once said, "He who errs in action, errs in judgment." The Stoic path demands ownership not just of your actions, but of your outcomes. But these people, they rewrite every outcome. They reframe every failure. They bend every memory. You begin to wonder, was I too harsh? Am I the unstable one? Number. You've just been spun inside someone else's storm for so long, you've forgotten what stillness feels like. Here's the test. When consequences arrive, what do? Do they reflect? Do they take pause? Or do they deflect, attack, and reframe? Because emotional volatility isn't always a mental health issue. Sometimes it's a defense mechanism, a tactic to avoid accountability by creating confusion. And when they can't run from the consequences, they try to bury you under them. That's not love. That's collision. The Stoic response? Don't argue. Don't diagnose. Detach. Let them live in their chaos, but don't let them drag you into it. You don't need to carry someone who repeatedly jumps into the fire and calls it passion. You don't need to lose sleep over someone who won't lose ego. Because when you stay too long with someone who refuses accountability, you start apologizing for your sanity. And that's how you lose it. You're not here to be someone's shock absorber. You're here to build a life with gravity, direction, and peace. And anyone who treats stability like a cage was never planning to stay. At first, it feels like chemistry. You finish each other's thoughts. You like the same music, quote the same books, share the same worldview. You think, this is rare, maybe even meant to be. But something feels manufactured. You don't remember who said what first. You notice they start using your exact words, your phrases, even your gestures. You're not just being understood, you're being copied. This is the sixth sign. Emotional mirroring and identity theft. A manipulation tactic where they reflect back the best parts of you to gain your trust and eventually erase your sense of self. They listen not to connect, but to absorb. They mirror your trauma, your beliefs, your hopes. Not to relate, but to build a version of themselves that you'll attach to. And it works. You feel safe, seen, heard. But then, things shift. You start second-guessing your own thoughts. You feel invaded, even when they're being supportive. You lose track of your own opinions, because everything is met with agreement. You think it's compatibility, but it's mimicry. What you're experiencing isn't intimacy. It's identity invasion. You realize they've studied how you speak, so they can speak like you. They echo your core values, but can't explain why they believe them. They love everything you love, but nothing they found on their own. And when conflict finally happens, when you pull away or speak differently, the illusion cracks. Suddenly, they accuse you of changing, of being distant, of not being who you were. But the truth is, they were never who they claimed to be. They were just you. Reflected back. This erosion is slow and dangerous because it doesn't destroy you with violence. It replaces you with silence. You stop asserting, stop disagreeing, stop being you. Because the more you expressed yourself, the more it got echoed back until you couldn't tell where you ended and they began. That's not love. That's psychological possession. Stoic philosophy draws a hard line here. Epictetus taught, know first who you are and then adorn yourself accordingly. But when someone is mirroring your every move, you can't even hear your own voice. That's how they win. Not through domination, but duplication. And once they've replicated enough of your identity, they start to edit it, correct it, undermine it. You say something vulnerable, they correct your tone. You share an insight, they act like they had it first. You feel uneasy, and they say you're projecting. It's subtle, until it's not. Until you realize you're shrinking to keep them comfortable. You no longer dress how you like. You speak softer. You question your values. Because somewhere along the way, being mirrored turned into being erased. Here's the Stoic solution. Silence is not consent. Agreement is not identity. And connection that costs your authenticity isn't connection at all. Ask yourself, do I feel more myself around them or less? Do I grow or just reflect? When I speak, do I echo or do I exist? Because someone who truly sees you doesn't copy you. They stand with you, not as you. You are not here to be studied. You are not here to be sculpted into someone else's ideal. You are here to live from your own center. And anyone who dissolves that center, no matter how charming, is not love. They're a mirror with teeth. They say they just want to be close. They tell you they value honesty, that they're an open book and expect the same. But what they call vulnerability is actually intrusion. This is the seventh sign. Boundary violation disguised as intimacy, the tactic of pushing past your emotional lines too fast, too deep, and then calling your discomfort a lack of love. It starts early. They ask things no one else would. Private stories, family wounds, details about your past that feel sacred. You hesitate. They smile. It's just me. You can trust me. And maybe you do. So, you share a little at first. Then more. They lean in closer, affirm everything, say all the right things. You feel connected, like they get you in a way no one else does. But you don't realize they're building a map, and every piece of your past is a coordinate. They'll use your openness later not to understand you, but to control you. This isn't bonding, it's blueprinting. And here's the twist. Once they have what they need, they flip the script. Suddenly, you asking questions feels like pressure. You setting limits is shutting down. You taking time is being distant. Because the game was never about mutual closeness. It was about access to your mind, to your heart, to the deepest, most unguarded parts of you. And once they're in, they never truly leave. Even if they disappear physically, their voice lingers in your head. Their judgments echo in your decisions. Their expectations live inside your boundaries where your voice used to be. You may even start questioning the boundaries themselves. Am I being too closed? Was I just scared of intimacy? Maybe this is what connection requires. Number. Real intimacy respects timing. It honors silence. It allows for space. What they're doing is manufactured closeness, a kind of psychological speed run to gain leverage, not love. Stoic philosophy stands firmly against this. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts." Letting the wrong person too far in too fast doesn't just distort your boundaries, it stains your inner world. You begin adjusting yourself preemptively, avoiding conflict, sharing less with others because this one person made you believe your truth is dangerous when spoken. Here's the test. When you say no, how do they respond? Do they lean back or push harder? Do they respect your hesitation or pathologize it? Do they wait or guilt? Anyone who sees your boundary as an obstacle was never planning to honor it. And anyone who demands total access in the name of love was never here for love. They were here for control dressed in connection. You are allowed to take your time, to share in layers, to pause, to protect your inner life, not because you're hiding, but because you're worthy of being known slowly, not consumed quickly. Stoicism doesn't fear connection, but it refuses fusion. It teaches discernment, self-possession, the kind of grounded peace that says, "You may come close, but only as far as I remain whole." So the next time someone demands more than you're ready to give, asks too fast, too soon, too deep, ask yourself this: are they here to love you or download you? Now you see it, don't you? It was never love, never synchronicity, never fate. It was performance, pattern, precision. Each word was a test, each touch a tactic, each moment of connection a calculated step toward control. The smiles weren't warmth, they were masks. And the scariest part? You didn't miss it because you were naive. You missed it because you were human. You wanted to believe. You gave the benefit of the doubt. You saw pain behind their anger, potential beneath their chaos. But at some point, the signs became too loud to ignore. The charm that evaporated when you said no. The lies that twisted your memories into fog. The absence of empathy in your most vulnerable hours. The constant taking, the chaos, the lack of remorse. The way they copied you until you couldn't hear your own voice. The boundary violations disguised as love. It wasn't one thing. It was all of it. Layered, silent, devastating. And now you've seen behind the mask. That moment matters. Because once you see it, you can't unsee it. Once you name it, it can't control you the same way. Stoicism teaches us the chief task in life is simply this: to identify and separate matters so that I can say clearly to myself which are externals, not under my control, and which have to do with the choices I actually control. Epictetus. You may not control their behavior, but you control your clarity, your choices, your exit. You are not here to fix anyone. You are not here to explain basic respect. You are not here to lose yourself piece by piece in the name of loyalty. You are here to protect your mind, your peace, your sense of reality. So ask yourself now, have you ever loved someone and later realized they never even existed? Just a mask, perfectly shaped to match your wounds. If that question landed somewhere deep, this video was for you. If something in this video made you stop and reflect, hit subscribe to continue this journey, and leave a comment if you feel like sharing what spoke to you.